Perfect. So I will pass it on to our speaker for tonight, Danny from Banking on a Better Future. Take it away.
You. Thanks, Hope. Hey, folks. Cool. So yeah, my name is Danny. I use she and her pronouns. I'm calling in from Toronto, the territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. And tonight we're going to talk about memes, which is super fun and exciting. But before we do, I just want to share a little bit about how I come to this work. So I've been organizing in the climate movement since 2019 here in Toronto. I'm chronically online. I'm always on my phone. I'm always on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. I was like a Tumblr kid, so I've been online since I could like open a laptop on my own. I feel like I had a time in my life where I was dealing with a lot of climate anxiety and climate grief in an isolated way, which meant that I was doing like the doom scroll. If you've ever read an IPCC report, then you know what it feels like. But I've come to a point where I'm really grateful for the online communities that I found myself in and the ways that we can use humor to cope with climate anxiety and with the reality of the climate crisis. I organize with Banking on a Better Future, which is a grassroots group focused on bank divestment, and I'm the digital campaigner there. And then I also organize on a volunteer basis with a grassroots group in Toronto called Climate Justice Toronto, where I've done work with the digital communications team. And for me, organizing is really all about community and relationships. And then I see the internet as one of the most powerful tools we have at our disposal to find and to connect with each other, especially during this pandemic. So I want us to start by just like grounding ourselves in this moment. There's a lot of, I think, factors that point to us maybe being a little bit more online now and finding ourselves in the space where we want to make memes. COVID-19 definitely brought us online more than ever before. I know that for my organizing, it really forced me and the folks at CJTO to dramatically change our strategy because our in-person strategies weren't safe, and to find new tactics of mobilizing and connecting with others. And I know that that's something most people went through and are still probably trying to find our footing in. At the same time, we know that the alt-right and our opposition is extremely online and is extremely adept at connecting with folks online. They're weaponizing the internet at an all-time high, using misinformation and preying on people's fears during a time where like people have a lot of fears and a lot of problems that they're dealing with, and really stoking the flames of white supremacy, of hyper-individualism and reactionary conservatism. And I don't say this to like put a damper on our meme night, but like we have a real challenge in front of us, and really I think we could do a lot more to try to meet this with an alternative for those folks who are online, who are looking for somewhere to challenge their anger and their fears around the way the world is right now. Working from home and with so much of our lives online, I know I open my laptop at like 8:30 in the morning and I close it at like 11, which is maybe a relationship I can examine, but working on Zoom and then organizing on Zoom, being on my phone, we're finding community on the internet and people are finding each other on the internet. So if we want to reach people as climate organizers, we got to be online. I also think there's just a baseline of like awareness of global suffering and like disaster that's so much higher than generations before us because of the internet. And I kind of think that we know too much. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, about how we were talking about the shooting in Colorado Springs and how we both learned the information by like scrolling in between like a funny meme and then like a picture of our friend's dog and then this like horrible tragedy and then like someone bought a new shirt. And it's a lot and it's very overwhelming, and I find it really difficult to like set good boundaries and to figure out how to navigate those spaces where you think you're going there for pleasure and joy, but you're kind of constantly taking in information about the state of the world. And of course, our world is literally on fire with this climate crisis that is like more urgent than I think most people are willing to really recognize because it's so scary. And so, you know, we have some really weird, really dark, really silly humor that's happening on the internet. And I think that it's really connected to this moment. Um, I was doing a little bit of research to prepare for tonight, and I was looking into like why is meme culture so weird? Where does it come from? And one of the things that I found that I thought was really interesting was this connection between the moment we're in now and post First World War, the Dadaist movement. So after the First World War, which obviously was a completely world-changing event that like had no precedent and no one really knew how to deal with. There was a generation of artists who were just like so disillusioned with the world and felt so like powerless and frustrated that they created this anti-art movement that really rejected the state of things. So in the face of like a lot of suffering, of war, feeling overwhelmed, feeling out of control, we get Dadaism, which is absolute absurdity and a rejection of logic. And it's also a bit of a defiance against the bourgeois art world, against those with power who were deciding, you know, what is good taste and what is bad taste, what is good art and what is bad art. So these are some Dadaist pieces that I was just like I really fell down a little bit of a hole looking at Dadaist art and feeling like the vibe was very familiar. And it kind of reminded me of some memes that come across my feed. Probably the most famous piece here is Fountain by Marcel Duchamp, which is just famously a urinal. And the Armut, there's some kind of pun there, but I can't quite remember what it is. But there are some other pieces here that are, you know, equally, I think, as cheeky. Prelude to a Broken Arm, which is just a shovel. So it's like implying that like the person's going to shovel and they're going to fall on the ice and break their arm. Gift by Man Ray, which is like not a great gift if you go to iron your clothes and you just rip a bunch of holes into them. The drawings on the Mona Lisa, it's like a bit of a dirty joke in French that they've written at the bottom. And this other piece called Glass Tears by Man Ray, which I learned is actually part of a series about like one of his exes that he was like really mad at. So yeah, so I just think these are really interesting. And like, I feel like there's more connection in terms of the type of humor that we're finding online and that is coming, especially out of like Gen Z internet spaces and past art responses to like a lot of tragedy and a lot of suffering and just a lack of feeling like we're in control. So yeah, you might recognize the vibe. And I'm gonna expose myself a little bit with the next page, the next slide, because these are memes that are on my personal feed. But here are some memes that I came across like in the past week that I think get to a similar kind of place of just absurdity and like darkness and weirdness. All of these are memes that if I showed them to my mom, she would be like, what? Are you okay? And I think the other thing that's interesting about this is like, these are really my personal memes. These are really like tailored to me, tailored to the audience that like will find things funny that I find funny, and they might not hit the same way for you, or they might, but memes are so hyper specific and meme culture is so hyper specific that especially if you're very online and if your audience is very online, they'll find themselves in spaces where they're getting like what feels like almost tailored jokes. Like do the people who send me emails know we're all going to die someday is like kind of how I feel every time I check my inbox. So how are we going to use these memes to organize and to mobilize people? Well, for me at Banking on a Better Future and with Climate Justice Toronto, I have a specific context of working with young people and organizing youth. And so being online is a really crucial part of meeting those folks where they're at. We talk a lot about, you know, meet people where they're at. Well, where they're at is Twitter, is TikTok, is Instagram. It's also a great way to connect to new audiences. If you can create memes or content that are shareable, that people will want to throw up on their Instagram story or send to their friends in a group chat, that's a great way to find new eyes and to reach new organizers who might not be in your community or in your circle. And I think also really importantly, like laughter and absurdity is a really important community response to the overwhelming climate anxiety and grief that that young folks are feeling. So it's a great way to foster community amongst the people who are already in your circles, and also to invite people into your organizing spaces with humor. So I'm going to share some examples from my work at Banking on, excuse me, I have the hiccups. My work at Banking on a Better Future, to give you like a little bit more of a concrete idea of how you might be able to use memes to mobilize. So this first meme is an example of using memes as a recruitment tactic. So we were recruiting for an intake call, a Zoom call in September. And so I use this like pretty well-known, pretty common meme format. And here,
yeah.
And here I'm really aiming for something that's shareable, that people are going to want to send to their friends, accessible language, not too complicated. It's pretty simple. It's a recognizable meme format and it has a clear call to action. So the call to action is that folks join this intake call. Another way that you might use memes is by capitalizing on a moment in time. So, you know, COP is happening right now. There's a lot of COP memes. That's a great example. For us around Thanksgiving, I created a series of memes that did quite well for us because, again, it's a moment that exists outside of our organizing, but that has connections. So they're relatable, they're shareable, they're aligned with the organizing that I do at Banking on a Better Future, but not directly tied to it, which can give you like maybe a little bit more of a likelihood that folks are going to throw it up on their story or send it to their friends, which is definitely what happened with this little series. Here's a couple more from that Thanksgiving series. I'm funny calling it a series, they're just memes. So, you know, on the left-hand side, we've got a good meme about ruining Thanksgiving by talking about politics, which I'm certainly known to do. And on the right, you can see there's like maybe slightly more of a connection to Banking on a Better Future and our theory of change, where right now we're organizing against RBC. But yeah, so these are some examples of how you might take a moment that's already happening and create content around it that's going to connect to new audiences and bring more people into your organizing. Another way that you reach new audiences is by looking for moments of intersection and then again, being able to capitalize on that virality and that viral moment as quickly as possible. So in the summer, the Montreal Canadiens decided to sign this like brand partnership with RBC and put the RBC logo on their jerseys, which if you're a hockey person, which I am not, but I've been told by my dad, this is like a very big deal. It's like in French, they call it the Sainte Flanelle, which is like the holy jersey. So it was like very, like felt like a desecration of this jersey. And so there's all these people who are hockey fans who are not necessarily climate organizers, who might not, you know, even really know much about the bank divestment movement, who are also angry at RBC. And so this meme is like a good example of like every morning I'll take like 10 minutes and just check like trending topics on Twitter and like specifically as it relates to RBC, and then created this meme in like 10, 15 minutes and it got a lot of traction. And I think got in front of the eyes of folks who might not see our content generally. Another way you can, you know, use memes to the absolute best capacity is by just staying on top of viral moments and trending meme formats. So around Halloween of this year, we were planning a pretty big action against Dave McKay, who's the CEO of RBC. And these are two different kind of viral moments that happened around that time. So on the left, you can see the Taylor Swift, It's Me, Hi, I'm the Problem, from her song Antihero, which became like an instant meme and viral moment. And then on the right, you can see there was the like Spirit Halloween costume meme format. And both of these really, really directly plugged into an action that we were doing. Dave McKay was winning an award called Business Leader of the Year from Ivy Business School. And we were outside protesting with an action where we dubbed him the climate villain of the year. Something else that I think is really important is to really think about viral moments and digital moments all the way through your action planning process, not just afterwards. So ask yourself if there are ways or opportunities that you can create viral moments while planning your action. On the right, you'll see there's like, I think what is probably the best example of this within at least my work. We have this 15-foot inflatable of Dave McKay that we've invested in, and we share it with a sister group in Montreal. it's massive and it's ridiculous. And every time we bring it out to an action and inflate it, we create a viral moment. We create a moment that media wants to show up to, that people who walk by want to take photos of. It's sort of a walking meme. You don't need to go buy a 15-foot inflatable, but this is a great example of like really thinking about digital and thinking about social and thinking about memes throughout your planning process, not just afterwards. And on the left, you can see again, there's some handouts that we did, some pamphlets about Dave Mackay at This Same Action. And one of our organizers did these little like doodles on Dave's face, which I think is another great example of how to create those like little viral moments, those like kind of funny moments. Maybe someone wouldn't look at this flyer, but they will now because it's interesting and a little bit cheeky. It also reminds me of the Mona Lisa Dadaist piece, which I think is kind of fun. So some basic tips for meme-ifying your organizing. The first one is to understand your audience, which is going to inform the memes and the trends that work best. So if you were like, what the heck is going on when I showed those memes that were on my feed, that's fair. You're probably not me. So really understanding, who are the folks that are following you? Who are the folks you're trying to mobilize? And what will they find funny? What is interesting to them? What memes are they seeing? And along with this is staying on top of trends and having the capacity and the time to quickly capitalize on viral moments. So if something is trending, being able to carve out 10, 15 minutes to quickly create a meme or to quickly hop on that TikTok trend. The thing about these viral moments is that they pass really quickly. So if you don't hop on it quick, you risk kind of aging yourself and like not reaching new audiences if you wait a couple of days. I also think when we talk about humor and we're making funny content, to make sure that we're punching up and not down. So really understanding the analysis of power of folks involved in the climate crisis and, aiming for people like Dave Mackay, who have a lot of power, have a lot of money, as opposed to, an RBC worker who works at a local branch and is just trying to like make ends meet with their family. And then finally is just like, when it comes to memes, it's just about generating a bunch of content and not being afraid to make a bad meme, not being afraid to make a flop. Not every single one of them is going to go viral, but the more you can like try different things, get things in front of people, and sort of test their responses, the more you're going to get better at making memes, and just be silly with it. And so with that, we're gonna, I think, hop into some breakouts and make some memes together, or maybe we'll do it all together. I don't know. What do you think, Hope?
Yeah, I think we should do it all together. I think we're a nice small group, and that would be great. I'm gonna stop the recording now.